The first meeting of the Tea Party movement was triggered by the bank bailouts by the Bush and Obama administration in February 2009. The party's goal is to get people elected to endorse the Tea Party, reduce federal spending, taxes, and deficit, including getting rid of social programs. The goal is not to create a third party, but to rebrand traditional Republican candidates and policies. The movement has no central leadership, but is composed of loose affiliation between national and local groups. The group's ideas vary from place to place. The movement is a prime example of grassroots political activity.
My name is Margie Hershey. I'm a professor of political science at Indiana University, and what I specialize in is elections and how people explain what elections mean. And I write a book about party politics, and so of course I've been watching events like the Tea Party activities to try to get a sense of how to understand what they mean about American politics.
Well, We the People Indiana is a not-for-profit that I founded with my husband in April of 2008, and the function is to educate the people in the community or in the state, depending on what the issues are, on what's going on with our city government, our county government, our state government, and our national government with policy. And so our goal is to try to educate people so they could take that freedom that they are allowed to go out and use that information to the way that they see fit.
I think from a federal level, from a national level, conservatives and the Tea Party are trying to focus more of their influence and their beliefs at the local level. For example, an adult gets up and goes to work and pays taxes. Well, a large percentage of the tax dollars go to Washington, D.C. I think folks in the Tea Party and conservatives in general would like to see that influence stay, like for example, for myself, I'd like to see my dollars stay in Monroe County.
We've seen Tea Party-like movements on and off throughout our history. One of the things that California is dealing with now is the result of their sort of local version of the Tea Party 20 years ago, when a group called for greatly reduced state spending in California and cut property taxes in the state, which was very popular initially until we began to see that school class sizes began to rise, 40 kids in a class instead of 30. Because when you cut federal spending, it's going to reduce services in some way or another. California is now in awful shape economically. You wonder why anybody would want to run that state given the economic situation that it's in. And if the Tea Party had its way, that's probably what we will be facing nationally in another 20 years.
As a large impact for national or local issues, I think it's education, that people are awake, they want to know, they want to attend meetings, they want to know what their candidates are saying. They don't just show up at a booth and vote Republican or Democrat because their parents did. Mm-hmm. So I think just on an awakening level, the Tea Party already made a dramatic difference.
If anything, it just engenders thinking. I mean, that's the great part about being in America. We're allowed to think and say and express our views. Whether they're correct or incorrect is for folks to decide, but we're allowed to speak our views and express our views. And hopefully the Tea Party and this movement in the last couple of years in federal politics and national politics will start to engender thinking at the local level and hopefully kind of curb some of the federal spending and give some power back to the states and the local government.
I've heard some reporters ask Tea Party people, so you've turned down your Social Security checks, right? You're not asking for any money from the federal government because you feel the federal government's spending too much money. And they've all said, oh, of course not. That's a necessary federal expenditure. That's something that I want to see continued. So what federal spending do they want to see cut? Well, apparently federal spending for the rest of us, including programs that benefit children who are the poorest economically group in the population right now. In other words, I think there's a little bit of hypocrisy going on in the Tea Party movement, but I'm sure it's very sincere, and I'm sure most of us in their position would want as much help for ourselves and as little help for other people as we possibly could get away with.
The real grassroots movement wants constitutional principles to be applied, and if that's the case, then that means that the government closest to the people is the one that's most important. Well, the national level is furthest from the people, so not focusing at all on the local elections, the local races, the local policies, like in your state, would be contradictory to what we really want.
Well, the first thing you have to understand is this movement is not about politics or political allegiances. These folks are always more concerned with policy. So for the next 2 years, they immediately believe that they can work with their newfound champions in Congress and to work to help them pass good legislation through the Congress. And they're very excited about being more involved, as we call the model, the inside-outside model, in assisting the movement of good legislation. Now, it is true that they understand now the power of their involvement in the electoral process to the advancement of their ideas.
I think the Tea Party more or less stands for conservatism, and I think conservatism is not, it never has been a fad. I think we see a more of a push towards conservative beliefs at the local level, the state level, and hopefully the federal level. Especially with these midterm elections. So I think it's here to stay. Whether the Tea Party is the quote-unquote Tea Party 30 years from now or 3 years from now, that's to be seen. But conservatism is something that I think is brought back into the forefront of Americans and their political beliefs.
I think the Constitution is firm and complete and clear, but we have to work hard to make people move back to those principles, not to move it or that it's confusing to where we're at now.
The Tea Party's existence and influence in the future are still undetermined, but its immediate effects are apparent. Both national and locally, the movement is making a political impact on United States citizens.
Arr, matey!